Hello and welcome to Astrology Rising. We'll take a look at the inauguration chart of Donald Trump and its implications for us all, no matter where in the world we may live. The presidential inauguration took place on January 20th, 2025, under a very powerful Sun-Pluto conjunction. This is always a sign of a president or person in power who will assume total rights to himself, total control, wherever possible, regardless of the circumstances or the country that it occurs in. The idea of rule by executive order becomes the new norm, rather than having to go through all the checks and balances normally required to enact laws or change the way things are done. We have yet to see what level of success the new norm will have. In the inauguration chart, see that Sun, Pluto, and Fortuna form a stellium in the 10th house. The Moon at 18 Libra in the 6th of public health, law enforcement, and the civil service is square Mercury at 18 Capricorn in the 9th of matters that pertain to law, immigration, and international relations. These were some of Trump's initial executive orders and announcements: a hard line on immigration, testing the boundaries of the law, and wanting to opt out of international agreements. Now, Mars will station direct at 17 Cancer, opposing the inauguration Mercury in late February, and pass over the IC of the inauguration in mid-April. When Saturn passed over Joe Biden's IC, he stepped down as candidate. We know that Saturn is the greater malefic, but Mars is the lesser malefic, and Trump's chart is very much dominated by Mars. So how will this affect Trump when Mars, now in its stability in Cancer, passes over the IC of the inauguration chart? Mars rules the 7th of those who oppose him, and is exalted in Capricorn, which rules the 10th of the presidency, as well as the 9th of international affairs. So we can expect some news or events that directly affect his presidency. Pluto in Aquarius, the destroyer and the transformer. It's important to note that Pluto in early Aquarius is in the terms of Saturn, meaning that it is largely destructive in these degrees and under the influence of the greater malefic. Lots of people talk enthusiastically about the great transformation that will happen with Pluto in Aquarius. It will eventually be a total transformation, but Pluto tends always to break down, destroy, and annihilate first. The old to be torn down and the new to be rebuilt. Governments around the world tend to become bloated and overstuffed with extraneous clutter in the form of repetitious tasks and overlapping departments, which leads to the old establishment becoming very cumbersome and slow. Anyone who's ever submitted forms or requests to the government for approval or for applications knows this. Departments tend to grow and grow until they almost collapse under their own weight. Pluto in Aquarius will tear down, remove, or destroy anything that doesn't serve its purpose. Only then can it begin to repair, improve, or reconstitute the structure or organization. In that way, it's a bit like buying an old distressed property and having to rebuild it to bring it into the modern era. Now, how a government goes about doing this is also very important. It can be largely destructive or carefully updated. The Billionaire Inauguration, Sun conjunct Pluto. More than one news article commented on the fact that the billionaires were front and center at this inauguration, marking possibly the first time that they openly flaunted their connection to this Trump presidency. This is reflected in the inauguration chart, which has Sun, Pluto, Fortuna, stellium in the 10th house of power, as I showed. So the 10th is the presidency. Is this concentration of power shown in any other chart? Actually, it is. In a previous video I did, called It's All About Time, I pointed out the roadmap of the next 20 years till 2040, which has the plutocrats and oligarchs of this world in the 10th house of power, the presidency. At the time, Pluto was still in Capricorn, but by Inauguration Day it was tightly conjunct the Great Conjunction of 2020 at 0 and 1 degree Aquarius. Power to the plutocrats has arrived. Or perhaps we can say that the plutocrats of the world are now openly working with the government. Note that at the time, in 2020, Mars was hiding in the 12th house, square to Pluto, suggesting hidden plots and plans. Now Mars will soon station on the IC of the 2020 Great Conjunction. This suggests something previously hidden, meaning where Mars was in the 12th at the time of the Great Conjunction, will most likely come to light then. Mars is not usually the bearer of good news or the bringer of good things. We can clearly see the great concentration of power represented by the Inauguration Sun-Pluto-Fortuna trio. All of them conjunct the Great Conjunction of 2020 map. This represents a new era in world politics, and certainly in American politics. Retrograde Mars at 24 Cancer in the 4th house is square the 2020 Mars, like I said, and opposes the 2020 Pluto. This speaks of many shocking or unwelcome changes coming, especially since retrograde Mars also opposes the 2020 Pluto in Capricorn. Many of these changes to the homeland do not seem to be in the interests of powerful people in charge. It's very clear that the Great Conjunction at 0 Aquarius in the 10th of power and status gets a second big emphasis on Inauguration Day. The plutocrats were at the time of the 2025 inauguration on full display. This tells us we're in a new time where the most powerful people will control the message, control the airways in various ways, and do so with the president's full cooperation. Here is Donald Trump's chart with the election new moon. Note that Jupiter retrograde is conjunct his natal sun and North Node in the 10th, which is also very powerful, though Jupiter is debilitated. This tells us that he is not as strong as he was during his first term. Election Jupiter conjunct his natal North Node is all too often an indicator of destiny. However, there's a fixed grand cross in place. Namely, Mercury opposes Uranus on his MC and IC, and they square his natal Mars ascendant and Fortuna on the descendant. Fixed grand crosses create an immovable object or situation that isn't easily changed. Mercury on the IC, the place of endings, is very important in his chart since he is a Gemini sun. Mercury opposing Uranus strongly suggests a chaotic or shocking situation relating to the election. And indeed, his shock win had everyone who didn't vote for him shaking their heads in disbelief. The fact that this setup tightly squares his natal ascendant and descendant only adds to the unlikelihood of his win. But also apparent in this chart is that the new moon ascendant, Fortuna, and Mercury all trine Mars and Neptune. Neptune in Pisces in the 8th suggests something hidden or secret, and trine Mars in the 11th of Congress, a fortunate outcome that isn't really apparent beforehand. There are many more peculiarities in these two charts, but suffice to say it's a strange combination for such an apparently big win. Add that both these square his natal ascendant and Mars, and it again suggests the vote